Thanks. The support for the Matildas over the past 3 weeks has been unprecedented, with huge numbers at live sites and television ratings that have hardly ever been seen before. Over the weekend, the government announced $200 million in funding for women and girls sport, acknowledging that it falls well below the level that is provided for men. Why is it that it took the success of the Matildas to bring about this change, and why wasn't it already part of a policy platform?
Hannah.
I reckon I can guess. Because we couldn't see it. You can't be what you can't see, right? Like, how amazing is it right now that the #1 person in Australia is a queer woman of colour? She's of the fact that times are changing, I don't know what it is.
Who could you possibly be talking about?
Who could I possibly be talking about? Hi, Sam, if you're watching. But yes, no, look, I run a women's media company, and we have seen our biggest growth ever at Missing Perspectives over the course of the Women's World Cup, because it seems like people are finally getting the message that women have value. Spoiler alert, we always have. And that our stories and our success matters. And I think the $200 million from the government is an excellent example of putting your money where your mouth is. And I think compared to the fact that, like, FIFA announced today that the Women's World Cup has made $900 million in revenue, beaten only in the history of any sporting event by the Men's World Cup in Qatar last year, like, that's an indication that we matter. And I think, like, today the AFL also announced that they're finally doing equal pay for the AFLW, and the Wallaroos have got a statement out at the moment asking for more support from Rugby Australia. And I just think now is a really important time. I'm not really sure what's going on in the zeitgeist between the Women's World Cup and Barbie, but something is finally happening.
Zoe?
Look, the Matildas have been extraordinary, obviously, but we can't just go, oh, that was great, and then settle back into what we had before. I have girls, I had a schoolgirl today come up to me and say, please talk about facilities for girls' soccer teams, girls' AFL. I have girls in my electorate, one of the wealthiest electorates in Australia, changing behind trees, giving up sport because they have to change in the car. This is just not good enough. I have been raving on
because they know they can't go as far as.
Oh yeah, but also they don't feel safe.
Yeah,
you know, these things are all interconnected. You know, it's to do with gender equality and equal pay for equal work and equal profile for equal performance and making women feel safe and girls so that they can perform to their full ability. It's not just about what happens on the sporting field. It's about what happens in our communities, what happens in our schools, our universities. And making women empowered to actually achieve what they can. And we've seen that with the Matildas. It's a turning point moment. We have to use it. And thanks for the $200 million, government, but we need a lot more. There are a lot of girls.
The situation's quite dire in regional areas. Since I got elected, I'm on a mission to train with every football and netball club in my electorate. And
how's that going for you, Sam?
Yeah,
I'm
I've done
really
10,
curious.
and there's more of them than I first thought.
How many more do you have to get to?
Probably 26. Netball's harder than football, but you see the state of the change rooms, and it's really terrible. Can you just
repeat that for 1 second, because I just want to flag that, like, the Diamonds won the Netball World Cup
good point.
And didn't get a single cent of prize money.
So I just want to draw attention, and we should be putting this money towards, you know, sport, community sport, women's sport. And I must say, I believe that the financial commitment came because the Prime Minister suggested a holiday, which would be a huge cost to the economy. The Coalition suggested $200 million instead towards... $250 million towards facilities for women's sport. And to their credit, the government has agreed to do that.
OK, why so late, Tony Burke? Did the women have to outrate everyone in the history of Australia to get Just an injection like this?
There had to be something significant and additional after what has happened throughout the nation. Like, there had to be. You couldn't have, like, we talk about, like, the Matildas on the field, but you see what happened in every community and in every lounge room and at the live sites and everything. Like, the shift around the whole of the country and the excitement has been breathtaking. So there had to be something additional as a response to that. I think importantly isn't just that the money's there, it's how it's being worked out where it goes.
Absolutely. It's
not colour-coded spreadsheets. The minister's not picking this electorate or that electorate. It's being done with people like Liz Ellis. You've got a serious board of women who have seen right from the community level up to the elite level, making the decisions about where it needs to go. And I think how the money's being spent is at least as important as that it's coming.
George, how do you reflect on what we've just seen?
Well, I love what Hannah said about the LGBTQ community. I've got a very personal story, and I'm one of the few people that's been lucky enough to go and see Sam Kerr play for the Chicago Red Stars back in 2018. I'm her biggest fan, and she'd love to have me come around. She hadn't heard the Australian accent for a while, and she was doing it tough. And just to know that there was an Aussie there appreciating her brilliance, and she'd win for them in every game. Probably one of the greatest footballers in the world. But I've got a grandniece, Serica Shillingsworth, who's an athlete. She plays in American football and basketball. She's gay, she's Aboriginal, and she's an artist, and she's doing it really, really tough. So we've been watching this, and Sam, and, you know, half of the team, Matildas, are same-sex, you know, their relationships. And so this just shows me how much sport can do to bring positive social change. Like, Serica was almost levitating when, you know, that goal, that last penalty goal was scored. It was just so wonderful.
I think the whole country was levitating.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, you can imagine.
I haven't stopped levitating since that goal.
And so it just proves to me that things like the arts and sport can bring the changes that we all need.
And I actually hope that, like, from the Matildas and from seeing the success, like, I know in some ways it's a lot more socially acceptable for them to be out because there's all sorts of toxic masculinity ideals.
Well, just tonight on Four Corners, Louise Milligan has a story about the fact that we have no out AFL players, male AFL players.
They've got to be in there.
Well, that's the point, Zoe. I mean, that's why.
It's actually really shameful that is still so feared to come out as an AFL
But of course
footballer.
it is, because look at the way the media, like, the only sports person we've really had in Australia that's come out was Ian Roberts, and that was back in the 1980s, and he was treated terribly. But the fact that, like, you have all the stuff with, like, the Manly Pride jerseys and all the furor that happens every time there's a Pride round or whatever, because people have got different religious beliefs or teams, for whatever reason, don't agree with same-sex relationships, which, why is anyone's relationship anyone else's business? Not in my book. Like, of course people aren't going to come out, but hopefully, looking at the Matildas and looking at the support, that might be one of the flow-on effects that we don't expect.
I think it's a game changer.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
I hope it makes members of the LGBTQIA+ community feel accepted.
Yeah, and of course, them being gay is just part of their story.
Yeah.
They're excellent athletes, and that's their main story.
That's their thing. It just happens to be an "and" on the end of their story. Not, it doesn't have to be the full story.